I'm really excited about today's chat. Um, I'm Narratively's co-founder and editorial director, Brendan Spiegel. This is our open book live video series where we chat with writers, artists, editors, publishers, just about how they do what they do, how it works on the business side, the creative side, how you get inspiration. If anyone is coming in not familiar, Narratively Academy is a destination for writers where we offer classes and live videos and critiques and all kinds of tools to help writers do what they do. Um, Abir Haq, who's leading this interview today, has been a instructor for us really almost since we launched last year, teaching a great class on the Insider's Guide to writing personal statements and applying for grants, residencies, and fellowships. Is that the mouthful we ended up titling it, Abir? I think that's correct. um, so that's a really popular class we do, and I'd be I can't not put in a little plug. The next session of it is tomorrow, and we actually have 2 seats, I think, still open. They're probably going to go really fast, though. So if anyone's on and is interested in Abir's class on personal statements, jump off and sign up. But Abir, has been watching our open book videos. We've been having some great ones lately, and said, "I've got someone who I think I would really love to hear from, who I'd love to interview." So she came to us and suggested the idea of this chat with Nupu Press. If you've seen some of her art and writing that we shared, it's really inspiring. I'm really excited to kind of hear from both of them. Folks, if you have any questions along the way, I think we lost Abir for a minute. I'm going to see if I can add her back in. She was having, oh, you're back? Oh, no, get her back. Abir was having Wi-Fi trouble, so bear with us if it doesn't work out. Abir's coming in. If not, Nupu, we're going to have to pretend that we're best friends and that I've always had so many things I wanted to ask you. No, it'll be great. I think Abir is coming in on video. Can you hear us, Abir, or no? All right. Well, while we wait for Abir to come back here on video, Nupu, will you just tell us a little bit kind of about what you do, about how you started your writing and art practice and all the unique things that you do?
Sure. So I loved drawing and painting as a child, and I just thought, like, that's what I'm going to do forever. And then at university, I had sort of really severe depression, and I completely stopped, like, just didn't touch brush or pencil to paper for like 30 years. And I only picked it up again during COVID in another period of deep depression. So something about depression seemed to have triggered it on or off. So this practice only started 5 years ago. And so I have huge sympathy or interest in people who think they're creatively blocked. Because I know what that's like. I had that for 30 years. So I'm really interested in encouraging as many people to get into kind of this sort of a practice.
I'm going to change venues and see whether getting...
Great. Yeah. Abir, while you were trying to get in, I just asked
Josh?
I just asked Nupu to tell us a little bit about how she got started.
Can I just be closer here? Can you turn that off so that I can do my chat in here, because the internet is not working?
Bear with us for a sec, guys. Sorry.
So sorry.
No, that seems much better, though, Abir. And I was just, while you were cutting in, I was asking Nupu to tell us a little bit about how she started doing what she's doing during COVID. And yeah, I'll let you take it from here, Abir.
Okay, so sorry about the technical difficulties. I'm now beside the Wi-Fi router and I are together.
Perfect.
All right. So sorry. Thank you, everyone. I see 33 little eyes, and so I'm very excited to share this space with you and with my dear friend Nupu. So happy that you could make this happen. So I, before we dive into like blending art and writing, I wanted to talk about how yours and my peripatetic upbringing, as well as our upbringing, as well as in our adult lives, have shaped us and our creative work. Some of you might know me as someone who loves to travel, and I can assure you that Nupu is the most traveling person I know. Her illustrated packing lists are so beautiful. I want to frame them. Nupu, what do you think about the travel and creativity, that drive?
Yeah.
How do those two things come together for you?
Because I think we have similar backgrounds in that we grew up in different places and but identified with kind of different parts of us identified with certain places, parts of us identified with other places. In my case, I felt there was always a part of me that's kind of an outsider.
Totally. Yeah.
And always from the outside looking, like the nose pressed up against the glass and the glass fogging up from our breath, like, always the outsider looking in. And it took me a long time to realize that there's also an insider part of me that's always there. That's me with my thoughts and my feelings and my curiosities. And what I found that with the kind of combination of words and images that I use, it just became a great way for me to utilize both parts of me. And I think also, can I just say that a lot of people I know who were born and raised in the same place still sometimes feel like an outsider. That doesn't necessarily have to do with moving around the way we do. And so for me, I feel like, I brought some things to kind of show you some examples of things. So I had walked the Camino de Santiago in Spain. That was the first time I had gone to Spain. And so there were just little things so like I was eating breakfast and I noticed that the fork is always smaller. The breakfast fork is always smaller than a regular fork. And I was like, it's not a big thing, but I'm always like curious, like, what makes people do something like that? And every table would have these this is metal one, but they could also do plastic. And they would just have these little sort of waste paper baskets on tabletops. So you would throw away your rubbish in there rather than litter the table. And at the same time, I also had sort of a lot of insider experiences because I was so, I like if I ate like a bar of chocolate really late at night and then I'd berate myself because I'm up half the night from the sugar buzz. Um, or I would do, which I think something that you mentioned and also some other people would always comment is like an ode to my underwear. Because I was so grateful on the Camino that in torrential rain, it could be pouring, but they would dry overnight and my socks never dried. So things like that were always like really fascinating. And those were just insider experiences. Those were things that were happening to me and I owned them just as much as I owned the outsider experience of looking in and asking questions. So I found that they were both kind of valuable to note.
Yeah. Yeah,
How
no,
do you feel? Because you also do that.
I definitely feel like I have that outsider eye has informed everything that I have ever done creatively. Like it's just the way I think about the world. It's the way I take photographs. I like even the kinds of photographs I take are about like looking at a familiar object, even if something that's very close to me, like trying to see it in an unfamiliar way. And so that's also something that that definitely informs my photography. And I was thinking, I like to combine photography with writing because I feel like it gives me all these different layers to look at life. Because writing is just one way of recording or interpreting or translating. And then photography gives me one more layer. So it comes closer to the kind of the experience of actually feeling the thing, being in the experience. And so I've written short stories and illustrated them with photographs for my portfolio. And I've been writing a series of poems that are inspired by photographs as well. And I'd love you to tell us why you think illustrated diaries are important for your
Sure.
practice or for anyone.
Sure. I can start with why is any kind of diary or journal. And I use the terms interchangeably. I had both American and British education, so I use both British and American terms. So they mean the same thing: journal, diary, sketchbook, journal, all of that. So if I could just say first that why is keeping a journal or diary valuable? Um, and I'm a dedicated diary writer. I've been writing it since I was 12. And the thing that I've realized over the years is that we'll always remember the big things that happen to us. And even though I do write about them, it's really capturing the smaller details that I realize afterwards had given me the most value in capturing them at the time. And so, as an example, for when I walked the Camino the first time, I came to this place one day, and the host offered to do my laundry in her washing machine. And I really didn't like washing my clothes by hand, and so I would always seek out washing machines. So I was, really, I loved having that option, but there was this internal script running in my head, like, don't be a burden to other people. And so I just kept saying no. And she kept insisting. And so clearly it was not a burden to her, but I just kept saying no. And then I ended up finding a local laundromat and spending, €9 to wash one t-shirt, one pair of leggings, one underwear, one bra. It's like, it's crazy. And if I hadn't really noted that down, I think I would have, and I realized that I kept doing this. And I realized by noting it down and putting it, I was able to look at it and be like, that's I need to examine this. I need to
What's
figure this
happening
out.
there, right? What is this? Yeah.
Yes. And it's a small moment, but if I hadn't noted it, I think it would have just gone past me and I wouldn't have understood that it had any significance. And when you keep a visual diary, to me, it's much stronger because as I'm drawing it, I'm really kind of putting that into my head. And so I'm really understanding, I'm really encoding that experience. I'll also just give another example. So the first time that I walked the Camino, like an hour out of Santiago, there was this dog on a wall who was greeting all the pilgrims. And it was
Yeah.
just this wonderful, joyous dog. And we were like, wow, how cool is this dog? And everybody, loved this dog. And so I was so charmed, I drew it. And then the next year, same wall, same dog. He was there again. And I was like, that's amazing. And I
So
think if I
cool.
hadn't quite completely registered it in my system by drawing it out, I don't think I would have realized the kind of freaky deja vu experience of that.
Yeah. It's just making me think of two things. One is that I um I used to, people would be like, "Oh, what have you read recently?" And I realized I couldn't remember. So then I started listing the books that I had read because I was like, "Oh, I need." But then they'd be like, "Oh, why did you like that book?" I'd be like, "I just have a general kind of yes, no, kind of positive, negative." And it was only when I started writing just one line even about the book that I could remember it better. Even if it was just like, I like the book because it talked about this or this character or this set, whatever. Just like one or two sentences, and it somehow encoded it in my brain. And so now I'm just dedicated to always like writing at least one sentence about the book. But like that recording thing also has come out. MIT just released a new study about it using ChatGPT. And then they found that people who were using ChatGPT to write would have so little recollection of the thing that they had written, versus the people who had even used ChatGPT to brainstorm and then written their own thing. That was fine too. But like if you just only just use ChatGPT, you just did not remember. And so actually using your brain to do that kind of executive functioning, because you're choosing what it is you want to write or draw about, right? Then that actually
Absolutely.
somehow kind of like puts it into your head.
Yeah. And the
And
number of
yeah,
times I write also, I keep a list of books and films that I
yeah.
watch for that very reason. I've been keeping it for years. And sometimes the only thing I'll write is meh.
Which is fine. I mostly wanna remember the ones that I've liked so I can tell people, like
Yeah.
um, and I will say, okay, so one of the things, I have this great spiel about journaling regularly, especially about keeping a gratitude journal. And there's a reason to keep a gratitude journal at night, which I can explain if anyone is interested. Um, which is basically that we tend to remember the ends of things. And so if you do a gratitude journal at the end of the night, you're going to remember the good version of your day and then eventually the good version of your life, right? Um,
But
but but the idea of keeping a sketch diary makes me very insecure. And I'm assuming some of the people in our group here are artists, or at least have more drawing talent than I do. But say you're me, terrible artist. How do I begin and how do I keep it up?
sure. So I would say that there are a couple of approaches you can use to add images to a diary or, a journal. So I can show you some examples. So One is that it's just a literal, it's a little translation. It's an illustration.
This is one of your packing lists. Oh my
This
God,
is
I
one
love
of
it.
my this is one of my packing lists. And so, so I'm literally illustrating the list, so
Yeah,
it's there's no thinking involved. I'm really just literally drawing the things that I'm writing about, or that's a part of my list. And so that's a direct, you write the text, here's the illustration of that.
right.
And the other way that this is, so in this case, I was writing about, so there's this part of, in big metropolitan city of Bombay, there's a part right in the middle, which is a village, which is pedestrianized, so you can't hear the road traffic. It's like its own little enclave, and it was just wonderful when I stayed there. And so I'm writing about, life in that village. And there's many, many aspects to that. And one of them was the fish sellers that would come and sell fish in the corner, and the cats would come and wait for scraps. And so this is, there's many things that I wrote here, and I just sort of pulled out one thread and felt like this was a visual, interesting part. And again, like it kind of encoded the experience of the village to me. And so now when I think about that village, I really think about her.
Yeah.
And another way would be to actually kind of tell two or even more parallel stories at the
Mm,
same time. So the text is doing some of the heavy
one thing.
lifting, and the art is doing another heavy lifting. So as another example, so this, I'd gone to Amsterdam last year. So because I'm traveling at the moment, I've printed out pages. I'm not showing you the original sketchbooks, unfortunately, but they're slightly brighter than this. But so I'm writing about how in the Netherlands, they don't allow credit cards in supermarkets, only debit cards. They, so there's sort of little details like that. I wrote about the bike lanes, and I wrote about the couple that I met on the train back, who had moved towns because they realized their neighbors had voted for Brexit. But what I drew was like my friend Nick, who I was staying with, and I drew like the milk bottles, because I find, like, the daily daily everyday objects in other countries, I just find it fascinating. Like, oh, look at the labels of this thing,
Yeah,
and there were shells from the Rembrandt that Rembrandt had collected that were in his house museum, and there's like fish in the market and ducks in the thing. And so, they're not related. The text and the art is not necessarily, I label things, but they're not otherwise related, but they belong on the same page because they're all a part of my Amsterdam experience.
right,
So to me, there's no right or wrong way to do this. It could
right.
be that you've written about something, and then something else happens completely differently, and you just note that down as an image, and that's a part of your diary. They both belong together as much as you want.
I love that. So you've talked about, yeah, telling two stories at once, getting the smaller unwritten moments, and also different ways to kind of, kind of blend your writing with your art. I was asking an even more basic question, which is, what if you aren't a good artist, but you would like to? Do I do stick figures? Like, what do I like? Maybe take my photographs and cut them up and put them in there, or yeah, what's because I think
There's
it's
all
actually
these
would be valuable even for someone like me to include some kind of visual element to my diaries. I'd like to do that, but I'm very like, yeah,
Yeah, and we're all increasingly in a more visual world. We're a visual oriented world. We're
yeah,
using that much more than we are words, unfortunately. Um, so if anybody wants to draw, I, you know, honestly believe everybody can draw. It's a skill, it's not a talent. You could read Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards, which is a great resource. You can take in person, online classes. There's lots of ways of doing it. So if you're interested in drawing, I would say absolutely draw, because as I did mention, drawing helps to really encode the experience in your way that I don't think other things might do as well. And if you don't want to draw, or if you want to draw very nominally, the other thing you can do is use collage, which I think is also
I'm
a
good.
great tool to use, because every day we kind of come across little objects, and it's kind of a nice way to remember that moment. It could be a receipt from your morning coffee. It could be, the price tag of something that you found in the vintage shop that you're really excited about. So, you staple in that, like, look, we only got it for $10, and you try to draw the coat or whatever. you can put in buttons, you can put in anything that would kind of fit into a book. And in that, around that, what is it that made you, what was it that made you want, what that was a funny or weird or thoughtful moment that you wanted to capture?
Right.
Collage, I think, is a colorful way of doing it,
Yeah.
and if you want to use photographs, and I'll say that I studied photography and it was my thesis in college, and I have great respect for it. I realized I was not a good photographer, but I absolutely recognize great photography. And I'm so glad now that pretty much everybody has access to this.
Right.
Everybody has access to a phone, and everybody's using it to record literally tens of thousands of pictures.
Yeah.
I would utilize a journal with images in a different way than just recording it on your phone. I would find a way to get a printout. And I have like a $30 printer at home, but even that does a pretty decent job. Or you could use a Polaroid, or you could use um, photo paper, so it's just nicer quality. But if you actually have the physical image of a photograph and you can
Right.
cut around it, you can write over it, you can do all the things that I would do with my artwork.
Right.
Then again, you're kind of helping to encode that experience, and because you're
Right.
taking the same kind of care and
You're
love
using your
and time.
hands.
Exactly, and you're using your hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to that end, I would also say that if you're it's I I type my diary because I type as fast as I can think.
Right.
But for the journals that I write, the sketchbook diaries, they're always written by hand.
Hmm.
And there's another, and I would really encourage people to do that as well, because there are things that you can do. So, for example, so I did, I don't know if you can see it. It's just like I found a heart-shaped stone. And so I
Hmm.
wrote the text in like a heart-shaped,
Right.
and you can do that kind of a thing, which you could do on Photoshop, but there's no fun in that.
Yeah.
And this pilgrim just walked past me and talked to me about the full moon, and so I drew, so there's a full moon, and then it just the writing I put it also in that. So there are
Right.
fun things that you can do which are just amusing and
Yeah.
um, that are just more creative.
Yeah. One of the things I do in my very non-sketch diary is I just use different colored pens. So I
Yes,
just have like a whole bunch of different colored pens, and I just each day is in a different color. But I like the idea of maybe mixing that up even more, and also just putting them into the shapes like that heart shape. I think that that's really lovely, because maybe I would be better at like maybe putting things into a circle, and that's my way of
that's yes,
incorporating art into my sketch journal.
and it
Yeah.
is, and that's it's one of, if you just imagine that there's no such thing as the right way or the wrong way,
Right.
there just really isn't. And so the minute you get comfortable with letting go of that part,
Yeah.
of that has to make it has to look good, it has to be this, it has to, no, there isn't. You can write upside down, you can write backwards, you can write anything
Right.
you want, you can write
Yeah.
around the page, you can, so it's everything goes. And
Yeah.
sometimes it helps to have parameters, and sometimes um it's good to just get rid of
Yeah.
all of them and just be like, I'm just going to do it my way.
Yeah. I think that I just saw very briefly someone in the chat was writing about kind of giving up on perfectionism, or trying to anyway. And I think that's like,
Mm.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really a big thing. All right. So one of the things that I was also thinking about, we're talking about why to do, why or how to blend these two arts. And one of the things I was thinking that you and I have talked about over the years, which is about art or creative expression, actually, in general, being the reason that we're alive or we're human. And we talked about what it means to discover and nurture a creative self. And I've been thinking about that recently because I've been trying to sell my novel to publishers for almost a year now. And I'm beginning to wonder why I'm writing anything at all, the age old artist angst thing. And at the same time, I know that my need for acceptance by the publishing industry cannot be the driver of my work. And in fact, the opposite. And I have to really believe that my work is important and meaningful to others, sure, but actually, most importantly, to me, and to revel in the fact that the creating brings me joy. But it's not easy, no? How do you keep the faith?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I think about this a lot because there's, for 25 years I worked in film production, and I used to make 100-page budgets of tiny numbers and calculations, and you can train yourself to be good at something like that, and I think I did, but it's not where I think that most of us naturally flow from. And so I feel like, and I also came up with this sort of mentality. I grew up with this mentality of like, product the more productive we are, the better we are, the more successful we are, right? So everything becomes a focus on the result. And so, we have become human doings and not human beings, kind of a thing. And I think the creative process is one of the best ways that we can get out of that, because creation is not about the end result. Because if you want the end result, AI can do that for you, but there's no fun in that. The whole point of the creativity part is the part where it's the process part. It's the part where you're putting things together. You're trying to figure it out. You're making it. You're cooking, you're gardening, you're painting, you're doing your pottery, or you're playing music, whatever it is. It's the whole joy of that. And and the productivity part, which I think our culture just really emphasizes to our detriment. But it's a very left brain. It's very goal oriented way of thinking. And I think it's good to have that to a certain extent. But the nurturing the creative part of us, and I might sound a bit woo, but like there's inside each of us, there's like a really young version of us who just wants to play. And we just keep trying to like not let this young version of us play, and and at some point, just like they will just start throwing tantrums. They will just start deciding that they're not going to play along with this like stupid, sensible adult thing. And the young person of us is not interested in efficiency or productivity. They just
Right.
want to play. And when we were young, like we just had like insane amounts of creativity, and we just thought we were amazing. Like nobody was sitting there, feeling shame or, judgment about the quality of the work. You're just like, woo, 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 I just love it. And the value of connecting to that part of us, I think, just enriches us as people. And in my opinion, even if you are very goal oriented and productivity driven, and I still think that this part helps you get there better.
Yeah.
You will enjoy it more.
Yeah.
You will make you a happier person. You will be a nicer person to be around. I think
Yeah.
I kind of had a breakdown 5 years ago, which made me come back to art. And that was kind of where I was. I was kind of at this point of like, what is the meaning of my life, where I'm trying to do all these so-called amazing things and achievements and things, but it's just leaving me feeling hollow. There's no joy in it. And I think with creativity, especially once you release the end result and the perfectionism and what is this for, it's just to enjoy yourself. It's to connect with yourself. It's to connect with the world. It's to understand the world in a different way and not see it in sort of a very black and white linear fashion. So there's many reasons to nurture the creative self. And it took me, like I'd said at the start when you were offline for a little bit, for 30 years, I was completely creatively blocked, and I didn't draw anything, literally anything, for 30 years. So I have, I have a special place in my heart and I want to encourage as many people as possible to connect with that part of themselves, because it's very enriching.
Yeah. Thank you. That's so inspiring. And it just also dovetails with my personal mantra of like just always looking for joy or pleasure in the things that we do. Because despite our world being just, the cesspool that it is, if we are not able to find the joy, then we are not going to be able to save our world either.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. The duty of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but because you work in multiple mediums, like how do you find this? Like, what do you associate with each of those that you think brings out different parts of you? Because that's also very interesting.
Yeah, I've experimented with a bunch of different things. I when I was writing my short story collection, and I wanted it to have poems and photographs. And like you said before, like the one of the things I was trying to do is try to tell a different version of the story with each of these genres or elements or mediums. And so like the poem would be like maybe spoken by a side character or be the internal monologue, or the photograph would be like the mood or the atmosphere of the story. And so I was kind of overlaying these over the text, which was telling one version of the story. And I kind of wanted to do something even more kind of wild in the beginning, and I'll still maybe make this book. It wasn't my Lovers and Leavers short story collection, but something where like the blue pages would tell one version of the story and the red pages another, or something, right? Um, and then the other thing I mentioned, my photo poems, where I've been taking photographs to kind of get me back into writing poetry, because poetry was my first love, and I had sort of fallen off writing it to my detriment. Every time I write a new poem, no matter how shitty it is, I just feel so more myself and more just, I don't know, like, useful in a way, as you know, maybe as crazy as that sounds to say about writing poetry, that I've done something that actually is meaningful in the world. One of the other things that I really love that I've done in terms of mixing media is I've been working with my partner on a series of poetry videos. So basically, we're taking these poems that I've written, and he, Josh Steinbauer, is my partner. He is an incredible filmmaker and visual artist, but he has been taking these poems and like having me recite them and putting that recital over footage that he's shot, and then also like doing sound design and music over that. And so we've done a bunch of things where I've written poems already written and then he finds the footage. And so now we're trying to do kind of the reverse, where I'll write a poem, and so I've given him, I'm thinking of giving him this one poem that I've written and like seeing whether he can come up with footage to kind of like layer into it.
But again,
Um,
it could be it could be the visual version
right.
of the poetry, or it could
Yeah.
be, it's, yeah, you could do
And
that.
it's
But
delightful too, because you're sort of letting go, sort of in screenwriting, you're letting go whatever it was you had in your head for what the poem means, and then seeing what someone else translates for
absolutely.
you, which to me is just a delightful thing to witness. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm really excited about those projects.
that's so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, do you have anything else you want to tell our audience? Oh, I was going to ask them if there was any questions, but if there's something else that you want to talk about.
Um, well, I was just going to give a little bit of clues about things like how to incorporate, just things to keep in mind about if you
Yeah.
want, when you're incorporating images to. So this was my thing of you. So
Oh, yeah.
generally,
Nupu did a beautiful portrait of me at the Dhaka Lit Festival, where we were both presenting at some point.
yeah. So I think an odd number of images on the page is
Odd
more
number.
is more interesting and dynamic. Um, and also like think about the placement of images on the page as well, because if a triangle or a tick, like anything that kind of dynamic, because your eyes will tend to go between them. That's a helpful thing to know. And sometimes you can just kind of do a hodgepodge. That's the one I think that was used on the promo for
Right.
this. But just things of what that I saw in Pondicherry, and again, like they're kind of connected because they were connected for me in that time. Um, and then you can also play with scale. So obviously, shoes and a rabbit that kept eating my sister's Swiss chard
Love it.
is not in scale with the train in Boston. This is a Boston diary, but you can have fun. Like I said, there's no rule about how to do it, but odd numbers, think about where it is on the page. And also, if you're doing it in a sketchbook like I do, it's kind of fun to think about the page before, so
Yeah.
it's not exactly the same each time. So
Right.
it's just to play around with it, because I know that, I mean, when I started it, I kind of organically fell into this style completely randomly, and I just kept hitting my head like, how do I do that? And it's, look, there's no rules. I
Yeah.
just had to play around with it to kind of realize, like, oh, this is this is the way I like to do it. That's the way. So I just encourage everybody just to have fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fun thing. It's a joyous thing. It's not serious. Yeah.
I see one of the questions here. Do you draw or write first on the page?
So for me, I actually do use typing because I type the sort of diary entry into my phone first, and then I write it out by hand on the page. And
Okay.
inevitably, I overtype because that's what I do now because I type
Right.
so fast. And so by the time I come to writing it out on the page, I have to compress it because there's not enough space.
Yeah.
So I tend to know what I'm going to write, but I do the images first. So I draw the images out by pencil first, then I draw it by ink, and then I write it out. Then I write out the text around the images, and then I paint it. That's
Okay.
generally the process that I do.
Nice.
Because in your case, what did you did the when you combined poetry and photography? Which one came
Yeah,
first?
that was because I was having trouble writing poems. So I was trying to get myself back into writing poems. So I was looking at the photographs and I wasn't necessarily picking the photographs that were like what I thought were my coolest photographs. But just ones that I thought would like spark a story, in my head and like then would like, inspire the poem. So that's generally how I've been doing it. The photo poem cards. I'd like to do it in the reverse direction, but I haven't yet gotten to that. And it's also a very slow project. I want to make a little chapbook of these poems.
Lovely.
And I feel like it'll take me I'm writing them one a year. So it's going to take me a little while to get to
Right,
them.
one poem a year?
Yeah. I've been writing them on my birthday. So I wrote one, at least on my birthday, but I really need to like speed up that, that process. Maybe I don't need to, whatever. This book will happen when it happens.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, there's other books too, right?
yeah.
There was a question about art kit,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is
yeah. What do you
my
take when you travel? Yeah.
my favorite question because I was obsessive about this. So I work in watercolor and I draw in first in pencil and then I use a fountain pen. I use ink with waterproof ink in a fountain pen because I hate there's tons of waterproof pens that you can buy in shops, fine liners. I just hated the plastic waste. So I just found a
Yeah.
fountain pen that I really liked, and then I just get waterproof ink for it, which you need obviously with watercolor. And I generally for the Camino, I would use an especially small case of 12 colors, but normally I carry 20 colors. And again, it's still quite small. I don't have it with me, but it's very small and compact. And I find that you don't need more than 20 colors. You can mix pretty much every color that you want out of those 20. I can mix every color that I need out of the 20. And for that reason, I've been using a sketchbook all this time because I've been traveling so much. But now I'm actually planning to be in one place for a while, and I'm actually going to be studying at the Fine Arts Academy in Palermo. So I'm going to finally be able to go big. I'm finally going to be able to do big
Instead of
canvases
like,
and this tiny little thing and travel brushes and collapsible cups and all of that. I mean, I've got some things on my website, nupupress.com, that gives you all my art kit, travel kit, all of that. And I show it to you in video. I give lists because I'm obsessed with this thing. So there's lots of
yeah.
that if you're interested. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing so Nupu's books, the two books she has on the Camino are both available online. You can check on her website. But one of the books has like the drawing of the tiny little like palettes, and I just think it's so adorable.
Yeah.
um, I can't believe you went on like this incredible like multi-week hike with like art
This little
supplies.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I
just
don't
yeah,
have it here. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah,
I think
it's really fun. I really sorry, go
Brendan, I
ahead.
think there was a couple of other questions, but I don't know whether I caught. I know there was at least another one that I didn't see.
Caught most of them actually. Two
Okay.
people kind of asked Brian the same
So,
question, which was about your process, Nupu. Like, do you ever draw on scene as you're looking at someone? Do you ever take photos to have reference photos, or like,
all
what do
right.
you? Is it all from memory?
Anything? No, never from memory. My memory's terrible. Anything that can move, which is people or animals, it's always a photo. On the Camino, it's pretty much all from photos because I was just walking the whole. You can't keep stopping and painting. I mean, you can. I
Right.
didn't. Normally, because I love drawing everyday objects, I tend to draw directly that's in front of me. But generally, anything that's moving, no, not a chance. I'd like to. I'm not confident enough to do that yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful, you two. It's, as much as I love our chats about like how to get a book deal and how to publish articles, it's really nice, especially on a Friday, to just remember that, like you said, Nupu, art, the creative process is about yourself. It's for us. It's why we're
Yeah.
alive. So it's really, really nice to take that thinking into the weekend and the rest of the year here. And on that note, we teased this earlier, but we're going to do a special little flash essay and art contest inspired by Nupu's work. I'm going to paste the link right now into the chat. We'll also send it out. We'll post it in the Narrative Academy chat. But basically, the prompt is pick a small moment from this week that you might otherwise forget, write 500 words about it, and include a drawing or a photograph or collage, some kind of artwork. Could be quick photo on your iPhone, could be a doodle, could be a 30-second video or audio piece. But we'd love to see some submissions not from artists, folks like myself and Abir, who are like, but how do I do this? Challenge yourself.
I'll
You
submit
just write.
something. Okay.
All right,
I'm
I'm
going to
gonna
submit
challenge
something
myself.
just to make myself do it. So, so please, to encourage the non-artists among us.
Yeah, have fun. Like we said, like Nubu said, it's for you, right? It's not about getting
Yeah.
published.
Yeah.
But we will pick one of them to publish on narratively.com, which will be exciting. And so, yeah, thank you both so much for being here. And one thing I just want to say, thanks everyone for joining. And, this came about because Abir, who, as I mentioned, teaches classes for Narratively Academy, had joined several of our chats and said, someone I think the community would love and should know is Nupu Press. And so that's how it came
Mhm.
about. So, folks who are here, if there's someone you think we should talk to in our next open book, drop me a line, let us know. If there's someone you even want to interview yourself, let us know. That's totally an option too. So thank you, Abira. Thank you, Nipu, so much for being here. It's really kind of
My
inspiring and a great
pleasure.
way to close out our week.
Thank you, Brendan,
Thanks so much. Thank you,
narratively.
Brendan.
Yeah,
Yes.
for
Yeah.
making
Yeah,
this happen.
absolutely.
All right.
Thank
Have a
you,
great
Abir.
weekend, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.